the thing about everything that shows up on our websites, everything that shows up on Facebook, everything that shows up on Instagram, is we always have an interaction with other people. It's completely relational. Everything is relational. And so when we're talking about building websites, we are talking about building a relationship with our users. We're talking about building relationships, especially with our guests. And so one of the main things that we want to talk about is the anatomy of an attractive website. And the reason why is because before you even think about talking to someone, you're often wondering whether they're attractive or not. Or you're attracted sometimes to just the look of someone, right? When you meet someone for the first time and you think, oh, I think I might want to date that person, it's often the physical attraction first. And so the looks of it all is what makes all the sense in the world. The looks of it all is what really starts the conversation or really starts the idea of like, well, maybe I want to pursue this person a little bit more. In the same way, think of your website as if it's an organic being. Your website is a person. Your website is you. Your website is your church. Your website is your community. It's not just about something that's on there. It's about the people that you are basically projecting. So an anatomy of an attractive website is basically that idea of like I am building relationships, or I'm setting up ways and entry points that I can build relationships with other people. And so one of the reasons why this is happening is because the phenomenon within the world is basically that they're scrolling, they're swiping, they're doing all kinds of stuff with their phones. And you can basically decide whether you want to be with someone or whether you want to pursue someone within seconds. And so having a website is allowing somebody to pursue you within a few seconds. So you want to basically make it as clear as possible right off the bat. Does that make sense? So the two functions of a website is to either woo or to work. Wooing is the idea of being guest-oriented. One of the main reasons why you start up a website, or one of the main reasons why you develop your website, or one of the main reasons why you even renovate your website is so that you can work with your guests, is so that you can woo your guests. Your first impression is your website. And one of the main reasons, like so many of your visitors end up following you because of your website. So many visitors end up actually doing the visitation because of your website. And so wooing is a big part of it. Working, on the other hand, is working in your relationship with and in communication and engagement with the members that you already have. If you are not engaging with the members that you already have, often you find that they're not trying to go to your events. They're not trying to go to any of the small groups that you have. They're not trying to go to even your worship service sometimes because you don't have any kind of communication process at all. Your website sets up that foundation and that hub for all of that to happen. However, at the same time, while woo and work are both kind of a part of the functions, wooing is one of the biggest parts of your website because, let's be real, most of our churches don't necessarily have a lot of people showing up at the moment, yeah? And some of us are struggling in trying to build more people to come through. Your website is a big part of it. Your website is the first impression that you're ever going to get. So making good first impressions. Making a good first impression, it's very minimal and it's very concise. You don't necessarily give all of your information about who you are to the person that you're dating right away, right? In the same way, your website is doing the same thing. You don't want to put everything about your church right off the bat. You don't want to put all of the information that you have. You don't want to necessarily even put all of the 28 fundamental beliefs on your website. And the reason why is because you want that to be a conversation between you and that person. You want to excite people to be able to want to have a conversation with you even more. But at the same time, you are connecting with them on who you are as a church. You're telling them the truth about who you are. You know, we're talking about this idea of engaging and all that kind of stuff. That's true. But the main thing that you want to do is tell the truth about your church. But the way that you do that, though, is through visual presentation before words. You're not trying to tell people to come to church. You're trying to show them that your church is is worth coming to. Does that make sense? So visual representation of your church or visual representation of your website is important. I don't know if you went on Facebook or if any of you have run ads on Facebook before. But one of the things that you do whenever you develop a poster on Facebook is that when you post it up, they will tell you whether they're going to post it up or not. They will actually accept or deny. And they will say, look, no, you need to redo this again. And the reason why they usually send it back to you is because you have too many words on top of your poster. So what they say is people click when it's visual before words, before wordy. So you want to try to, as best as you can, your first impression is to make your words minimal and concise. Make it the easiest thing to read possible, and make sure that it's visually represented more than anything else. And so the second thing you want to do for a good first impression is to, of course, choose your colors. You want to choose your colors, you want to stick to your colors as best as you can. When you choose your colors, you allow yourself to actually have this, again, consistency that we were talking about, right? The consistency of colors. My remote is not working right now. Hold on real quick. The consistency of colors, I don't know if you can really see this, but the colors that I ended up using for my own church is this yellow to purple kind of thing. And the main color that I usually often use is this pink right in the middle. And the reason why is because over at Long Beach, we've got some really beautiful sunsets. Really wonderful looking stuff that you can sit out on the beach and just watch this stuff. Our church is literally 3 minutes away from the beach. And so it allows us a chance to actually show that this is the truth about our church. We have sunsets there. And so some of you often are trying to figure out, like, well, what color should I use? Well, choose what you want to do. What kind of emotion are you trying to incite right off the bat? Are you trying to be warm? So if you're warm, then you kind of choose more of the warmer colors. Or if you want to be cool, choose blues, choose a little bit of green blues and all that kind of stuff. If you want to create relaxation, choose the cooler colors. If you want to create an idea of warmth and welcoming, choose the warmer colors. So use those kinds of things, and then right off the bat, you want to create those emotions. This thing is not working for me at all. Another way that you can try to help yourself in building colors is this place called Adobe Color. So just Google that, Adobe Color, and you'll find ways that they can help you with it. And one thing that they do is you choose a color on here, and you click complementary, and you'll see all the different colors that you can use. So you have a 5-color or a 5-color color palette right off the bat that you can use. It's incredible in so many ways, and it helps you choose all of this stuff over time. So by all means, use this, color.adobe.com. Will help you build the color scheme. And even for your posters and all that, it helps you to build those color schemes that actually work. Because some of us are not necessarily the best designers. This helps us out in so many ways, you know what I mean? Let me see if this works. We're good to go. Thank you, brother. The third thing that you want to do for good first impressions is to make sure that your fonts are nice. But the other thing is you want to make sure that your fonts are both consistent and they match. Sometimes we don't, how many of you know the difference between serif and sans serif fonts? It's one of the most particular things in the world, right? And nobody really understands that kind of language. But serif fonts are those old style, typewriter kind of fonts. Sans serif fonts don't have this line underneath. They kind of create a little bit more of the modern feel. So you can actually Google fonts that are related to each other, and they'll show you what that looks like. Maybe like Oswald, the two different sans serif works with each other. Knowing these kinds of things, or even looking them up and researching, can actually help you in building a really nice looking page. To the point where, and here's the other thing too, you don't necessarily have to just use 2 colors or 2 fonts. Sometimes one font is good enough. And using variations of that, like bold or italics of that same font, actually helps out a lot. the best thing you can do is to try to keep it as minimal, again, as possible. Everybody know the KISS method? Keep it simple. Stupid. Keep it simple. As best as you can, keep it simple. Just 2 or 3. 1's fine, two's company, 3's a crowd, and then 4 is literally a rager. You don't want to have a rager on your page. And so, by all means, look this up. Research this. What are the fonts that you want to use? What are the fonts that are attractive to you? And what are the fonts that relate to that font that is attractive to you, if that's the case? You're like, Seraph, I believe that. And so one of the other things for first impressions is this idea, if you can help me push this over. I don't know if you can see this, but these are a hallway with a bunch of doors on the side. Your website is your primary entry point for your guests. And so if you can clarify what doors they need to go through, then it helps them out so much and helps eliminate the confusion throughout the process. One of the main things that a lot of guests are going through, and here's the thing, it's so sad, but so many guests nowadays, or so many people nowadays, are church shopping, right? We're dealing with that phenomenon right now. Everyone is church shopping. And the reason why they're church shopping, though, is because, number one, there are tons of churches all over the place, and especially Adventist churches. I mean, you know, we got an area next door that's kind of guilty of having all of those churches, right? And so we want to be, like, so we're dealing with this idea of, like, people just bouncing from church to church, and one of the main reasons why is because they're trying to figure out what the need of the church, or what church is filling their need, right? And so they want to know right off the bat which entry point is feeding their need. And so one of the ways, so one of the ways that I ended up creating when I ended up building my website was immediately showing what we were about. If you can see in the back a little bit, if you ever look at my screen, you'll see that there's a slight video right here in the back where there's a beach, and then it's kind of just showing. But the main thing that you see right away is that what we're about is doing life together. And right after that, the way that we do life together is we process what it looks like to love God, love others, live to serve. And in that process, that's what we're going to take you through. We're going to take you through what that narrative looks like. So right off the bat, I communicate 3 seconds. Within 3 seconds of the page loading, people know what it's about. And then after that, I have entry points for that to happen. Action plans right here. You got buttons that can lead you to the next step of how you can start relating to us. You have ways that you can create action for the person. Entry point, about us. Knowing more about us is helpful. Knowing more about what the church is doing is helpful. Knowing more about who I'm going to see at the church. And of course, you're going to see the pastor, right? So if you already have a visual representation of what the pastor looks like, or even some of the leaders look like, before you even walk into the church, often you eliminate, again, that confusion from your guests. You eliminate, again, that confusion for even some of your members who may not even know who the leaders of your church are, right? Eliminating confusion helps out so much, because when you walk into the church, you already know some of this information. And if you know some of that information, you already feel connected to this church, or to this area, or to these people, right? One way you can do this is subscribe. So these are some of the actions that I want people to go through right off the bat, is I want them to get to know who we are, and then I want them to start subscribing, because I want to have that conversation more and more. And so if they subscribe, I'm emailing them every week so that they can see more about what this church is about. So even if they haven't visited our church yet, they already have an idea of what we look like. And they may just want a little bit of a devotional. The next step is your menu. Again, your entry points. Your menu creates or communicates right off the bat where I need to go or what my needs are. So If I'm looking for the worship service, which is typically the main thing that you do, or the main thing that your guests interact with, right? If I'm doing the worship service, or if I'm looking for a worship service, I can go there right after that. Boom. I click, I learn, I see that immediately there is a worship service on Saturday. The difference between Saturday and Sabbath for a lot of guests is that Sabbath often creates a little bit of ambiguity of what that looks like, because there are a lot of people that go on Sunday. And so if they see only Sabbath, they're trying to wonder what that means, right? So if they see Saturday, they immediately know, okay, I know what day of the week that is. Oh, Saturday at 11 a.m. Use their language. Use it. Don't be ashamed of that kind of stuff. Because what that's going to do is when they come to you and they say, oh, so what are you about? Why do you meet on Saturday? Conversations. So you're starting up ways that you can immediately communicate to them in their language. And so when they come to you, then they can have that conversation with you. Let that conversation be or happen when they show up to your church. Worship. Study groups. That's one of the things that we want people to go through. We want them to go through small groups, so we immediately put that right there. Some people are not looking for a worship service, and some people are just looking for a group to be a part of. We have those kinds of people all over the place. They don't want to go into a worship service yet because they've been burnt before. And so they may, though, be willing to interact with an intimate group. In the same way, some people are only looking for service opportunities that churches are going through. They're not necessarily looking for small groups. They're not looking for Bible study. They're not looking for a worship service. They are, though, looking to volunteer for something because they want to serve in some way. Long Beach is very specific to that as well. So many people only care about cause. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is these are the entry points in which the Long Beach area is looking for. And one of the main things that they're going to do is interact with this especially. And so if I can get them to come in and serve with us, maybe we can be relational. Maybe we can build something. And maybe they'll see that, hey, Adventists are not that bad people, right? They're not the demons that a lot of people make them out to be. I would hope so. Subscribe and giving. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of putting your giving up there. You need money. Let's be real. You're doing ministry for people, man. You need money. And so don't be ashamed of that. Only be ashamed if you shame other people. That's the time you be ashamed. But don't be ashamed of putting that up right off the bat. Because that, again, is an entry point for people to support. Some people they may not want to go to worship. They may not want to go to a small group. They may not want to go to a service, but they're willing to support what you do because they care about what you care about. But again, you're creating that entry point for relationships. And so constantly we're building this. Constantly we're just keeping this up here so that people can start to interact right off the bat. We communicate within seconds what this looks like. We communicate within seconds what we care about as a church. And you're telling your truth. Again, that's all you're trying to do is just tell the truth about who you are as a church. Does that make sense? So a couple of other things. I know I'm going to skip ahead actually, because in the menus, we do have some drop-down menus that we want people to go through, and I definitely want to show that at some point. But that's another conversation, or that's a conversation that we can have later. But on my worship or on my homepage right off the bat is when people scroll down, they have their actions that they can do this. But when they scroll down, more action plans, right? So again, you're reiterating the actions that you want them to take. And then, now we can give you a little bit about who we are as a church, or we are a Seventh-day Adventist congregation established, right? Established in Long Beach to share the gospel by showing how we do life together. We're telling you, we serve you as a community. Right off the bat, you want to communicate that. You're here, or your church is in your area because you want to serve the people within your area. You know, we're talking about the idea of like marketing to more churches and all that kind of stuff, but the truth is, market to your area. Find out ways that you can communicate with organizations within your area. Partner with them. And that's another conversation especially, but when you post up partners that you have in your community, it's likely that your church is going to know, or it's likely that your guests are going to know that your church is in your community. Your church is relative to your area. Thanks, Beth.
No, you're good.
And then right off the bat, after that, when you scroll down even more, please help me out. Oh, and then we have an app. So real quick, I want to just do a little bit of content creation, just kind of reiterating some of those things. There are two ways that you can build content for your website. Some of you are trying to figure out exactly how to start your website, how to even, what you can even use. We're not going to have that conversation right now. You're more than welcome to ask me those questions afterwards. But two ways that you can build your content. You can either create it yourself, and it's likely that not all of you understand what content creation even works with, and that's why we're having this conversation right now. But borrowing helps a lot. Like Lauren showed you ways that you can go, or places that you can go to kind of take from other stock photos. By all means, don't be ashamed of borrowing and posting it up on your website. The one thing that you want to, again, make sure that you do whenever you post up other people's content is that you are telling, again, the truth about your church. You are telling, again, what your church is about. And so if you're borrowing somebody else's material, make sure that it's still telling your story in some way. Does that make sense? Awesome. Last thing. Search engine optimization. Many people don't know that when you build a website, search engine optimization is very important. When I was first asked, oh, hey, Pono, would you consider this church called Long Beach Seventh-day Adventist Church? And I said, yes, maybe. It was a shmaybe because I was like, maybe, sure, but maybe. You know what I mean? I don't know. And the reason why is because I don't know who they are just yet. So the first thing that you're gonna do whenever you're trying to look up somebody is, of course, you're gonna Google them. And the thing that I wanna see whenever I Google somebody is your page on the front page? Is your page actually showing up? And the ways that you do this is just to kind of create more content, create more traffic, ask your members, visit your website over and over each day, just so that you can start to build that algorithm that kind of pushes your church up to the front. So if you notice that AdventistChurch.org is the top right now, we were the second. When I was first asked, when we looked it up the first time, this is the first one that we went to, and it was horrible. Like, it was ugly. And so my wife and I were like, oh no, is this the church that we want to go to if they create ugly stuff like this, dude? I don't know. What we found out was that they did have a website, but it was the fifth down. And we were trying to figure out how to do that then after that. It's like, how do we make sure that this gets up, this continues to go up? And so that's a conversation, again, for the future, but know that search engine optimization, SEO, is a big deal when it comes to building your websites. You want to make sure that you understand, or at least someone in your church understand what SEO is. And so make sure that I'm only bringing it up so that you can research what that looks like. And then eventually you can build your church to be either the second or the top. And Google itself will make sure that your button is the right website that you're going to go to. Again, entry points throughout. You want to make sure that people know and it's clear what those entry points are. Just like how you would have good signage at your church. If you have good signage at your church, you eliminate the confusion. You eliminate confusion on where to park. You eliminate confusion on where to go. You eliminate confusion on where the entrance is. And so you want to make sure that in your website, you're eliminating confusion as fast as you can. Does that help at all? Awesome.